If we lose thousands of agents at the FBI, we are less safe. And our job in government, whether you're president of the United States, whether you're in Congress, whether you're on your local city council, your principal job is for people to be safe in the community. We're not safe when the president of the United States releases 1,600 violent individuals into our communities who storm the Capitol on his behalf. And we're certainly not safe when the people who stand watch for terrorism, public corruption, money laundering, child trafficking, and other high crimes are fired because they were on the other side of Donald Trump in an investigation they had to do for just doing their job. So we're going to be less safe when he does this.
And then, of course, we led the show, Congressman, by talking about the prosecutors in the Southern District of New York who are saying they'd rather resign than carry out what they see as a potential quid pro quo between the New York City mayor and the Trump administration. Your reaction when you see those efforts unfolding right before us?
When you see prosecutors in New York refuse to do a drug deal for Donald Trump, that's what honor looks like. Every prosecutor in America should read the memo that the lead prosecutor, I believe her name is Danielle Sassoon, put forward. It's so inspiring. It's what, when I was a prosecutor, it's what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to look at the facts and the law and not to give a rip about anyone's political standing. Watching this morning, Trump's lead immigration czar and Eric Adams on television talking about this agreement, it was so disgusting. It's what you would see on Russian television, just open, naked corruption. And so what we have to do in Congress, you know, is the branch that funds government and that funds the Department of Justice, is to put in place, you know, guardrails and protections against this. And that funding's coming up, by the way, in just a couple weeks.
I'm glad that you ask about that funding, because there has been a lot of conversations about Democrats being able to leverage their standing here. Usually Republicans need Democrats to help them continue to keep the government open, help continue funding. What's the leverage point that you're comfortable with Democrats using? Would you be comfortable shutting down the government? And to what end? What do you need to extract from these negotiations?
Donald Trump right now is shutting down the government. He's shutting down federal aid that's supposed to go to organizations. He's shutting down the FBI by firing agents. He's shutting down the CIA with forced resignations. He's shutting down aid that is supposed to go out and help people. Democrats want to keep government open. So our leverage is that we're not going to provide, I'm not speaking for others, but speaking for myself, I'm not going to provide a vote that enables a further shutdown. And as I take a step back and I watch Donald Trump take this wrecking ball to America and to our allies, I keep asking myself, will we ever get all of this back? Will we rebuild in California when Donald Trump says he's not going to help those victims of fire disaster? Will we be safe in our communities with fewer FBI agents and more January 6th terrorists on the street? Will our organizations be able to help people with less federal funding? And will our allies stand shoulder to shoulder with us as Donald Trump continues to poke them in the eye and treat them like an enemy? Those are the questions that I and my constituents are asking ourselves.
What we've also heard from the Trump administration is that the cuts are to try to decrease government spending. Of course, the way that they're going about it, and this is being argued in court, is harming both workers and then also the very structures and rules that are supposed to govern the way that government works. But the government did run nearly a $2 trillion deficit last year and had $36 trillion in debt. We're going to hear those numbers a lot as Republicans try to go through their reconciliation process. But are there any cuts inside the federal workforce that you would approve of?
Yes, I certainly would cut many of the benefits going to Elon Musk and the contracts that he's benefited from. And when I look at the stage at the inauguration, you know, many of the debt that you just referenced went to the billionaires sitting in the front row at Donald Trump's inauguration in the form of Donald Trump's tax cuts from his first administration. I would let those expire, as they should, at the end of this year. I also believe, you know, that we can make sure that we are an economy where if you work hard, you do better and dream bigger, and it's not just the billionaire bros on that stage that benefits. That's what Democrats are fighting for, and that's the budget that you're going to see us put forward.
Two things going on at the same time. There's the funding of the federal government, and that is approaching a March 14th deadline. And traditionally, the appropriators, House Democrats, House Republicans, Senate Democrats, and Senate Republicans sit down and try to find common ground on an agreement that meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, their national security, and their economic well-being in the context of funding the federal government's operations. Separate and apart from that, and we'll see what happens as we approach March 14th in that regard. But separate and apart from that is the Republican effort to jam a budget down the throats of the American people, which is in connection with the hearing that is ongoing today. That is at the heart and soul of the Republican bait and switch. First, they promised the American people that they would drive down the high cost of living. They've lied. Second, their true goal is to enact massive tax cuts for their billionaire donors and wealthy corporations, which is at the heart of this budget proposal. And they want that to be paid for by working class Americans and everyday Americans by doing things like ending Medicaid as we know it. It's my expectation that not a single Democrat will support this reckless effort.
What's the point of passing a budget if Republicans have already conceded that they're not in charge, that Congress is not in charge of spending money, Elon Musk is? What's the point of passing a budget if it's really Elon Musk's decision whether that budget is adhered to?
Well, what the Republicans are doing is they're using the budget reconciliation process that requires, of course, a simple majority vote in the House. Right now, there are 218 Republicans and 215 Democrats. But more importantly, from the standpoint of what the extreme MAGA Republicans are trying to do, is that they are using the budget reconciliation process so they can evade the filibuster in the Senate. Effectively, they want to try to jam this budget down the throats of the American people in a partisan way. It's not something that Democrats, of course, would ever be expected to support. But the key point in the House, given the closeness of the margins, is that to stop any of this bad stuff from happening, it only takes 3 House Republicans to do the right thing on behalf of the people that they represent, to stand up for children and seniors and people with disabilities and veterans who will be hurt badly by this Republican budget proposal.
But we've seen, Leader Jeffries, that there aren't 3. There aren't any. If Donald Trump announced tomorrow that he was selling the United States to Vladimir Putin personally and that we will now be owned by the Kremlin, every single Republican would say, yes, sir, and vote for it. We already have seen their behavior. We've stopped, I think most of us have stopped expecting any different behavior from them. So the question to me is the leverage that Democrats have at this point is coming up in March, and Republicans have never been shy about using the debt limit to hold Democrats hostage. You all now are the ones in a position to do that, to essentially attempt to prevent the debt limit from being raised by withholding any support, any help, any assistance. Are you prepared to use that leverage and say, if you all want to shut the government down, do it by yourselves?
Well, Republicans have the responsibility to fund the government. That's clear as it approaches the March 14th deadline. With respect to the debt ceiling, we already rejected a Republican effort in late December to try to give Donald Trump a $4 trillion blank check by suspending the debt ceiling for either 2 to 4 years so he could enact the GOP tax scam. Democrats are on record rejecting that. We did it in December. Now, with respect to when we will actually hit the debt ceiling, that is likely to come at some point as early as June 1st. It could come as late as August 1st. So that's an issue that we'll have to tackle in a couple of months.
Are you willing to help them raise the debt limit at all? Why not just say no?
We've already said no, Joy.
Okay. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. There is some reporting, Axios reported, that the leadership, including yourself, have taken some annoyance at groups like Indivisible and other activist groups who have organized protests that have also resulted in a lot of phone calls into Democratic Party offices. Why would that annoy Democratic leadership? It does feel like the energy that you're seeing at the town halls for Democratic and when Republicans do bother to talk to their constituents is real and it's genuine. Why would that annoy leadership?
It doesn't annoy leadership. I think that we've been very clear. In fact, we work regularly with advocacy groups to make sure that we are in lockstep as it relates to pushing back against the extremism that's being unleashed against the American people. That was, as I understand it, a report that was filled with anonymous sources. Not a single House Democratic leader, myself included, is on record making that observation, because nothing can be further from the truth. At the end of the day, our view is that it's an all-hands-on-deck effort. We need everybody. Democratic members of the House, Democratic members of the Senate, Democratic governors, Democratic elected officials, advocacy groups, everyday Americans, Democratic attorney generals like Tish James, who's doing her thing. It's an all-hands-on-deck effort in the Congress, in the courts, and in the community.
So, folks, one thing I've been loving seeing is more engagement in the media by Democrats. In a sense, doing what you would do at a Senate hearing or a House hearing and doing it in public to some degree. Because, you know, we on this channel and other progressive channels do bring to you, like, the best moments from, say, a hearing where, for example, AOC absolutely slices and dices Marjorie Taylor Greene. And that's great. But a lot of regular people don't watch congressional hearings. You know, not everyone watches the news, period, outside of the election period. Let's be honest about that. But more people see what's on the TV than what's on, a clip rundown of C-SPAN, right? And so I think it's important to effectively do these hearings in public, to go to the media. And this is what Republicans have done forever. And you don't have to like it. And you have to, you can think it's corrosive to public discourse, but this is what GOPers do. The real Republican House and Senate hearings, guys, they're not in the House and in the Senate. Where are they? Pause and write in the comments. I'll wait a second. You're right. They're on Fox News. Like, if a Republican really wants to bump their fundraising and get noticed, yeah, they might say something crazy in the hearing, but what's the real goal? To have the primetime hearing on Ingram or on Hannity or on whoever the Peters or whoever the frig is on nighttime news, used to be Tucker Carlson, to get the primetime hearing slot to have your real House and Senate hearing where there's no actual Democrats to oppose you, and you have it there. Except now the tables have been turned against Trump, and he does not like it.